In this video, we're going to learn how to add a feature to a nested part. In this case, I have a total of 7 nested sheets for closet parts. I have a total of 9 partitions. 4 of those partitions, I need to add a groove or a dado to add a light strip down the front edge between the front row of shelf holes and the front edge of the cabinet. So we have a left and a right on sheet number 2 or sheet number 1, and also have the same type of pattern on sheet number 3. So I'm just going to right click and delete the right and a left part from sheet number 3 because we're going to go back over to sheet number 1 and modify these two, and we'll end up making a duplicate of these two parts. So selecting on any part selects that in our part list, allows us to type the letter M to be able to move that part. I'm just moving that off to the side. I'm going to do the same thing for the left partition, moving that off to the side. This just allows me to get it off of the sheet to be able to get a cleaner view of what we are going to be doing. So I'm first going to sketch out a rectangle. Not worried about the size of this rectangle yet. Now that we have this rectangle sketched out, I'm going to go ahead and select it to be able to change the size. Before I change the size, or before I know what size to change it to, I'm going to use the measure tool. I need it to be the same size as to the top, to the notch here for the baseboard, which is a total of 81.45 inches. We're just going to round that up to 81.5. So now with that rectangle being selected, I could come over and make some changes. I'm going to change that layer from cut to dado. The total depth needs to be 5/32. If you don't have a calculator to know what 5/32 is, we could just type in 5/32, and when we tab off or move out of that text box, it will do that math for us. Could now enter in the size. The width of this dado, I need to be just a little bit over 3/8 of an inch. So again, we could go 0.375 plus 0.03. And when I tab off of this, it will do that math for us. Then for the Y, we're going to enter in 81.5 for the height of this rectangle. Once that is all entered in, I'm going to hit change depth. That changed the size of the dado, and it also gave us a new layer in our tool operations for dado. Now need to move this around to accurately place it 3/4 of an inch in from the front edge of the partition. So with it selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit the move, and I'm going to snap it, that's that red dot, the upper corner, to the upper right of that partition. With that selected, I want to move it to the left by 3/4 of an inch and up by 1/4 of an inch to allow the cutter to go out past the top of that partition. So to do this, I'm going to set the option, the anchor point to the top right, and then use the move selections here. So again, we want to move it 3/4 to the left. So that's going to be a negative 0.75. And we want to move it up 1/4 inch in the Y. So we'll enter 0.25. Then now when I click move, this is where it's important to understand what a decimal point is. So if you notice when I moved that, I had selected a minus 0.75. So it moved it 75 inches to the left. So I'm going to use the Control Z, which is going to undo that move and put us back to where we were. So again, selecting that rectangle, it is already moved off to that dado layer. The depth is set. the size is set, so I'm going to anchor it to the top right, and this time I'm going to remember 75.75 in the X direction, and then 0.25 in the Y. Now when I select move, it is going to move it 3/4 of an inch to the left and 1/4 inch to the top. I'm going to do the same thing for the part on the left side. So I'm just going to sketch out a rectangle. I'm not worried about where I'm sketching it, as long as when I mouse up on the sketch that rectangle is on top of that part. Doing that because that dado now becomes a selection of that cabinet part. And notice when we selected this dado, or that part, this dado is associated with the part on the right. That is not what we want to happen. So I want to move this dado. I'm going to select the perimeter of the part. I want to move this dado to be associated with that part. Once we have those selected, typing the letter S is going to make that transfer. So we could now see when we select the partition, all of the parts associated with that partition become selected. And when we select the other partition, this rectangle is part of that partition. So again, we're going to select only the rectangle that is representing the dado. Now that we already have a dado in our operations list, it is going to show up in our drop-down box. Again, we could go 5/32. Set the X to be 0.375. And I did plus 0.03. And the total height was 81.5. That part has now changed in size. We could drag and move it. And this time I'm going to move it to the top left. With that selected, we're going to come over to the move, and this time we're going to move it to the right. So I'm going to not have a negative value, and it's 0.75, and then again up, which is 0.25. And this time the anchor point needs to be from the top left. Selecting move is going to move that to the top left. So again, that is associated with this part, and this part dado is associated with the part on the left side. So now that we have those drawn in, we want to make a duplicate of these two parts, because if you remember, we deleted the parts off of sheet number 3. I still need those parts, but I want those parts to have that dado. So right-clicking, selecting copy is going to copy the part directly on top of the other. So we could go ahead and hit move and see that we've moved that off to the side. We don't necessarily have to move it since we are going to be nesting. And we'll demonstrate that by making a copy of that part. I'm going to leave that directly on top. So when we go ahead and hit the nesting button, we will then get a re-nesting of all of the parts. So we will scroll through, and here is one of the parts that has the dado, and then there is another one, and we have all of our dados nested out. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that is a demonstration of how we could add or draw new parts on top of an existing part, re-nest them, duplicate parts, move a shape around from one location, resize it, and how to move a shape that is associated from one part to another part.